Hello and welcome to this week's Forex Outlook here at xm.com. I'm Andreas Georgiou, investment analyst, and I'm here with my colleague Rafi Boyajan. So Rafi, out of the major currencies, the biggest underperformers are sterling and the euro. As regards the latter, angst over a potential clash between EU and Italian officials over Italy's budget plans are weighing on the common currency. Now, beyond that, you are working on a report on next week's important releases that may move the euro. Talk to us about that, Rafi.
Well, as you said, those concerns about Italy's budget, which the EU will likely reject, is heavily weighing on the euro this week. Next week, we do have the European Central Bank policy meeting. We're not expecting any change in policy. ECB Chief Mario Draghi will probably be quizzed about Italy's budget troubles, as well as potential slowdown in Eurozone growth, which we didn't really see. Eurozone growth was expected to recover from that first quarter slowdown. That didn't really happen. We're going to have the flash PMIs for October coming up next week, and those will likely show a further slowdown in Eurozone economic activity. So Draghi will probably be asked as to why is the ECB going ahead with winding back its asset purchases when Eurozone growth is still not particularly strong. But overall, though, the Euro's moves will likely still depend on what happens between Italy and the EU regarding that budget, the budget plans for 2019.
I agree with you, Rafi. And as I previously said, also sterling is underperforming this week. We had some weak data overall, in particular on inflation and retail sales. Those acted as a drag on the British currency. We also had some Brexit developments. Can you give us some context on those?
Well, we had the EU summit this week. At the start of the week, over the last weekend, in fact, the UK and the EU came very close to having a deal, but then at the last minute, it was announced that there was not going to be any deal, and also not expecting much progress at the EU summit this week. And that came to be true. So we saw sterling falling back, having gained in the prior week on that optimism that we could see a deal as early as this week. Overall, though, this was to be expected. I mean, it's fairly common for the EU in any negotiation to always strike a deal at the very last minute. But that uncertainty in the meantime will probably be weighing on sterling.
And Rafi, we touched on the underperformers. Let me briefly also talk about the week's biggest gainer, that's the Kiwi. And the move up was partially aided by stronger than expected inflation figures out of New Zealand. And with that, let's again move towards coming up over the next 7 days. Let's start with the US. Rafi, I understand we're going to have some GDP figures.
That's right. So we're going to have the first estimate of third quarter GDP growth. In the second quarter, we had that 4.2% annualized growth, which was pretty impressive. And that's not expected to be sustained, though, for the third quarter. We're expecting growth to ease to around 3.3%. Nevertheless, even the 3.3% is still above trend for the US and most advanced economies. So that will, so if it does come in as expected, that will be good news for the US economy and for the dollar as well.
And you did touch on the ECB. We'll have some more action on the central bank in France, specifically the BOC. It is expected to hike rates. Talk to us about that, Rafi.
Right. So we're going to have the Bank of Canada, like you mentioned. We're also going to have the Riksbank, the Sweden central bank, and the Norges Bank in Norway. So two Scandinavian central banks are expected to hold rates for this month. In the prior meeting, the Norges Bank did raise interest rates. In Sweden, there's going to be a speculation as to whether or not the Riksbank is going to signal a rate hike for December. But as far as any action taking place, that will come from the Bank of Canada. And The loonie, though, this week has been rather mixed against the US dollar, despite those rate hike expectations. For next week, that's mainly has been down to weaker oil prices. We saw a big jump in US crude stocks this week, so that has been weighing on oil as well as the loonie.
Thank you very much for your analysis, Rafi. And before I close, I should also say that Sino-US trade tensions remain in the background, as well as the dispute between the US and Saudi Arabia over the missing journalist. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and have a great day.